Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel NPA Discovery, the place where we look beyond glamorous photographs, familiar songs, and sensational headlines to uncover the complicated human stories hidden behind them. Today, we are examining one of the most controversial celebrity cases of the 20th century, the life of French singer and actress Claudine Longet, her relationship with champion skier Vladimir Sabich, the gunshot that killed him, and a trial that left millions of people wondering whether justice had been served. Claudine possessed a voice that sounded almost weightless. Her singing was intimate, soft, and delicate. She rarely pushed a lyric aggressively. Instead, she seemed to float across the melody, as though she were whispering directly to one listener. That gentle style helped make her famous. But after March 21, 1976, the public could no longer hear that voice without remembering a gunshot inside an Aspen home. The title of this documentary describes a soft voice, a fatal shot, and a trial that divided America. I agree with that description, but I disagree with the simplest version of the story. This is not merely the tale of a glamorous woman who escaped serious punishment because she was famous. It is also not a story in which every unanswered question automatically proves deliberate murder. Claudine maintained that the shooting was accidental. The prosecution challenged that explanation. Physical evidence raised serious questions about the position of the victim when the gun fired. But investigators made major procedural mistakes. A blood sample and private diary were obtained improperly and excluded. The firearm was handled carelessly. Evidence that might have strengthened the prosecution could not be presented properly. The jury ultimately convicted Claudine of a misdemeanor form of negligent homicide rather than the more serious charge initially pursued. She received a small fine, probation, and a 30-day jail sentence that she was permitted to serve on weekends. To many observers, the punishment appeared shockingly light when measured against the permanent result: Sabich was dead. Yet the justice system is not supposed to punish someone according to public anger alone. It must punish according to the charge proven through legally admissible evidence. That distinction is central to everything we are about to examine. We will explore Claudine's rise from Parisian dancer to American recording artist, her marriage to Andy Williams, her friendship with Robert F. Kennedy, her acting and musical career, her move to Aspen, her relationship with Sabich, the shooting, the courtroom battle, the controversial sentence, her relationship with defense attorney Ron Austin, and the silence that defined the rest of her life. More importantly, we will ask what her story reveals about celebrity justice, police competence, media spectacle, gender, privilege, gun safety, and the difference between legal guilt and moral certainty. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone interested in classic Hollywood and true crime history, and subscribe to the channel. Your support gives us the motivation to continue creating detailed documentaries that go beyond gossip and examine the deeper lessons behind famous lives. Now, let us return to Paris in the early 1940s, long before Aspen, courtrooms, and international scandal. Let us meet Claudine Longet before the world knew her name. Claudine Georgette Longet was born in Paris in 1942. Her early life was far removed from the American celebrity culture that would later embrace her. France was enduring the upheaval created by the Second World War. The country's social and economic life had been transformed by occupation, uncertainty, and recovery. Claudine grew up in a culture that valued performance, elegance, music, and dance. As a teenager, she began entertaining tourists through dancing. At first, this may have seemed like a modest way to earn attention or money. But small opportunities often reveal unexpected direction. A teenage performer learns quickly that the audience responds not only to technical skill but also to personality. Two dancers can execute the same movement, yet one holds the room because she possesses something difficult to teach. Claudine had that quality. She was attractive, graceful, and distinctly French at a moment when American entertainment often treated European sophistication as glamorous and exotic. Her identity became part of the performance. She was not simply a young woman who danced. She was the charming Parisian whose accent, appearance, and manner suggested a world beyond ordinary American life. That image would open doors. It would also follow her into every later chapter. In 1972, Claudine attended a celebrity ski event in California. There she met Vladimir "Spider" Sabich. Sabich was a former member of the United States Olympic ski team and one of the most charismatic figures in American skiing. He was athletic, wealthy, handsome, socially popular, and connected to Aspen's glamorous culture. The attraction between them developed quickly. For Claudine, Spider represented a different kind of man from Andy Williams. Andy's life revolved around entertainment, touring, and television. Spider's public identity came from speed, physical risk, competition, and outdoor freedom. Claudine eventually moved with her 3 children into Spider's Aspen home. This was a major change for everyone involved. A celebrated bachelor became part of a household containing a partner and 3 children. The relationship began with romance. A relationship that might remain private elsewhere becomes part of local conversation. Claudine and Spider appeared glamorous together. She was the French singer and former wife of Andy Williams. He was the celebrated ski champion. Photographs could make the pairing look effortless. Inside the home, the balance was more complicated. Spider had built a life around independence. One person may interpret living together as movement toward permanence. The other may interpret it as a relationship that remains open to change. When these assumptions are not spoken clearly, ordinary disagreements become evidence of betrayal. According to reports later examined in the case, the relationship had become strained. Claudine Longet began her public life through movement and sound. She danced for tourists in France. She crossed an ocean and performed beneath the bright lights of Las Vegas. She met Andy Williams through an ordinary roadside problem and entered a world of American music, television, wealth, and political friendship. She became a mother. An actress. A recording artist. A familiar guest in living rooms across the country. Her voice was quiet enough to make people lean closer. For years, that quietness was her greatest professional strength. Then one sound became louder than everything else she had created. A pistol fired inside an Aspen home. Spider's Sabich fell. The music did not disappear physically. The recordings remained. But the meaning changed. The public no longer heard Claudine only as the delicate French singer. They heard the woman who had held the gun. That is the terrifying power of irreversible action. A career is built through thousands of small decisions. A life can be transformed by 1 second. The lesson is not that one mistake always defines every part of a human being. The lesson is that some consequences become too large to remain only one chapter. Spider Sabich did not receive the opportunity to create later chapters. His life stopped at 31. Claudine lived another 50 years. That imbalance sits at the moral center of the story. The criminal justice system could not restore Spider. It could only determine Claudine's level of legal responsibility according to evidence and procedure. Investigators had a duty to protect that process. They failed repeatedly. The blood sample lacked proper authorization. The diary was seized improperly. The firearm was mishandled. Each error weakened the government's ability to establish what happened. This should anger anyone who values justice. But anger should be directed accurately. The constitutional rules were not the problem. The officer's failure to follow them was the problem. A warrant is not a meaningless piece of paper. Chain of custody is not bureaucratic decoration. Evidence procedures are not obstacles placed in front of truth. They are the path through which truth becomes reliable enough to justify taking away another person's liberty. When authorities ignore that path, they do not become more effective. They create doubt where certainty might have been possible. Claudine's attorneys used those failures. They were supposed to. A defense lawyer's duty is not to help the prosecution repair its case. The lawyer must challenge illegal searches, unreliable evidence, and unsupported conclusions. People may dislike the result. Weakening the defense would not create justice. Strengthening the investigation would. This distinction matters far beyond one celebrity trial. Every society faces the temptation to relax rules when the suspect appears guilty. But rules designed only for sympathetic defendants are not rights. They are favors. Rights exist precisely for the moment when the public is angry and certainty feels emotionally obvious. Claudine benefited from those rights more effectively because she had money and powerful support. That inequality must also be confronted. Andy Williams financed an expert defense. An unknown and impoverished defendant might not have received the same level of legal analysis. This does not mean Claudine should have had worse lawyers. It means everyone should have better access to justice. Equality is not achieved by taking protection away from the privileged. It is achieved by making meaningful protection available to the powerless. Spider's family experienced none of these ideas as abstract principles. They lost someone they loved. They watched the prosecution's case weaken through avoidable mistakes. They watched a jury convict Claudine only of a misdemeanor. They watched a judge impose a sentence measured in weekends. Then they watched Claudine travel with one of her lawyers before the sentence was fully served. They later saw that lawyer become her husband. To them, the process may have appeared less like justice than humiliation. We should not dismiss that anger. Victims' families are not required to experience constitutional procedure as emotionally satisfying. They are allowed to say the result felt wrong. The rest of us must ensure that empathy does not become a substitute for evidence. Spider deserves remembrance beyond the manner of his death. He was not merely the handsome athlete in Claudine's bathroom. He had built a life through discipline, competition, risk, and physical skill. He had friends, relatives, and plans. The media's fascination with Claudine repeatedly pushed him toward the edge of his own story. That must be corrected. A true crime narrative becomes morally distorted when the accused receives character development and the dead person becomes evidence. Spider was the human cost. Every argument about police procedure, celebrity privilege, legal strategy, and public image begins with the fact that his future was taken away. We may never know whether Claudine feared he was leaving her. We may never know what words passed between them. We may never know whether the trigger moved through panic, anger, confusion, or careless handling. The jury's conclusion remains the most authoritative legal answer available: criminal negligence. Some people believe the truth was darker. They may be right. Belief cannot replace proof. This restraint can feel frustrating. It is also one of the foundations of justice. The desire for certainty is strongest when certainty is unavailable. That is why unresolved cases become cultural obsessions. Audiences return, searching for the missing detail that will transform probability into knowledge. A diary sentence. A forensic angle. A witness memory. A change in expression. But human behavior does not always leave a perfect explanation. Sometimes the permanent truth is that no complete truth can be reconstructed. Maturity means accepting that uncertainty without filling the gap with whichever conclusion produces the most satisfying story. Claudine's later silence intensified that uncertainty. She did not spend decades defending herself publicly. She did not write the book that audiences expected. She did not sit for a final interview and explain the bathroom minute by minute. A civil settlement limited what could be discussed, but silence may also have been her chosen protection. For 50 years, she lived beyond public view. What did she feel? We cannot know. Guilt does not always produce confession. Innocence does not always produce public explanation. A person may remain silent because speaking would harm children, violate an agreement, attract abuse, or fail to convince anyone. Silence is emotionally powerful. It is evidentially ambiguous. That ambiguity followed Claudine to her death. When she died in May 2026, the obituaries returned to 1976 immediately. The entertainment achievements appeared before or after the fatal shooting depending on the publication. But the shooting supplied the headline. This may appear unfair to a life containing decades beyond the event. It also reflects moral proportion. Most people can sing softly. Most actors appear in television shows. Few become responsible, even negligently, for the death of another person. Public memory weighs consequences differently from resumes. That does not mean Claudine's earlier life should disappear. Her career helps us understand how celebrity shaped the case. Her French identity shaped public fascination. Her marriage to Andy Williams provided status and resources. Her quiet voice created a visual and emotional contrast with the shooting. Her friendship with Robert Kennedy connected her to another moment of gun violence. Her move to Aspen placed her inside a wealthy community unprepared for a case of this scale. Every chapter contributed context. Context must not become destiny. Being glamorous did not cause the shooting. Having relationship problems did not prove intent. Using drugs, if the excluded test was accurate, did not by itself establish murder. Becoming involved with her attorney afterward did not reveal exactly what happened beforehand. We must separate what looks terrible from what proves a charge. This is one of the most important lessons true crime can teach. Suspicious behavior is not always criminal evidence. Unlikable character is not a substitute for proof. A compelling narrative is not necessarily an accurate reconstruction. At the same time, legal uncertainty does not erase moral responsibility. Even under Claudine's own explanation, a firearm was handled so carelessly that Spider died. Accident does not mean absence of accountability. We use the word accident to describe events that were not intended. Some accidents result from choices so reckless or negligent that criminal punishment is justified. A driver does not intend to kill someone while speeding through a crowded street. The absence of intent does not make the death morally empty. A gun owner does not intend to shoot a friend while carelessly checking a weapon. The absence of intent does not restore the victim. This is why firearm safety must be uncompromising. Never assume a weapon is unloaded. Never point it toward a person. Never depend casually on a safety mechanism. Never handle it while impaired, distracted, angry, or emotionally unstable. Never allow familiarity to create carelessness. The bullet does not recognize apology. It does not pause while intention is clarified. It turns a temporary lapse into a permanent history. Claudine's case also shows why relationships require honest communication before fear becomes crisis. If Spider wanted to leave, he had the right to do so. If Claudine feared abandonment, that fear deserved words, support, and boundaries, not a firearm inside an emotionally uncertain room. This does not mean we know she threatened him intentionally. It means weapons do not belong inside relationship conflict. When intense emotions and firearms occupy the same space, the margin for survival becomes dangerously small. Remove the weapon. The goal should not be to escape memory. It should be to live with radical responsibility before a moment becomes irreversible. Tell the truth early. Handle dangerous objects with discipline. Do not allow pride to prevent apology. Do not allow fear of losing someone to make you behave in ways that destroy both lives. Seek help before emotional panic becomes physical danger. Your future is created not only by your greatest achievement but by what you do during the moment when you feel most threatened, angry, frightened, or abandoned. Claudine's quiet voice made people lean closer. Spider's death demands that we listen more carefully still. Not for gossip. Not for a final accusation unsupported by proof. For the lessons hidden beneath the scandal. Fame does not make a person harmless. Beauty does not make a person innocent. Suspicion does not create legal proof. Procedural rules are not enemies of justice. Police incompetence can become permanent injustice. An accident can still contain criminal responsibility. A light sentence can remain painful long after it is completed. And a victim should never disappear behind the more famous person who survived. Thank you for joining us for this examination of Claudine Longet's career, the death of Spider Sabich, the controversial trial, and the questions that followed them for half a century. Let us know in the comments which issue stands out most to you: the excluded evidence, the mishandled firearm, the misdemeanor verdict, the lenient sentence, or the role celebrity and wealth played in the defense. Please keep the discussion respectful and evidence-based. Claudine maintained that the shooting was accidental. The jury convicted her of negligent homicide, not murder. Serious moral questions remain, but unresolved questions should not be presented as established facts. Please like this video, share it with someone interested in celebrity trials and criminal justice history, and subscribe to the channel for more deeply researched stories from behind the headlines. And until next time, remember, the law cannot always deliver emotional certainty. But we can still demand competence. We can still demand equal protection. We can still honor victims. We can still refuse to transform suspicion into fact. We can still make responsible choices before fear, anger, intoxication, or carelessness creates a permanent consequence. One gunshot divided Claudine Longet's life into everything before and everything after. Our responsibility is to learn before our own irreversible moment arrives. Slow down. Step away. Secure the weapon. Tell the truth. Ask for help. And never mistake a temporary emotion for permission to create a consequence that another human being will not survive.